It was a week before my high school graduation, and I had my whole life planned out for me. My parents had finally let me go on a camping trip with some friends, so we went out on the lake after the Strawberry Festival. Little did I know that that day one of my good friends would run over me by a boat. The boat took off, and I went underneath the front of the pontoon boat and held on to little screws and plates that held the boat together. I wasn't strong enough to hold on, so I let go. I don't remember going through the propeller, but I remember opening my eyes as I swam back up to the surface. I got to the surface of the water and saw the boat leaving me, and I immediately stopped and prayed, God help me. I sat behind the boat while the boat was leaving, treading water with one arm and one leg, and finally someone noticed a life jacket and came back to get me. When they got back to me, someone dove in and swam me back to the boat, and I ended up being airlifted by helicopter from Dayton to Erlanger Hospital. After I got to the hospital, I was completely coherent, but I didn't really realize the extent of my injuries. I didn't realize that my leg was broken and lacerated in many places. My hand, I didn't realize that my arm was cut off for the most part, except for the skin that held it attached to my arm.
So I was called to the emergency room at Erlanger Hospital to evaluate a young lady that had been in an accident to see if we could include her in a research project. Arrived in the room, I found a young teenager laying on the stretcher with a near amputation of the right arm and the right leg lacerated badly, nearly amputated in several places. Nerves were destroyed, as were blood vessels. It was an arm that probably should be amputated, and that was at that point the idea of the surgeons. I asked what happened, and they said shark attack.
Throughout the couple of weeks after my surgery, my dad had talked to the doctor several times about, the doctors encouraging them to let them go ahead and take my arm off. Finally, my dad had absolute faith that God was going to take care of this and that I would keep my arm. I don't remember a whole lot about that week. After I came out, it was the Friday of my high school graduation. They thought something was wrong. They took me back into surgery, and they opened my arm up, expecting skin grafts needed, gangrene, and there was nothing but nerve regeneration, no need for skin grafts, completely something that shouldn't have happened. Through those 12 days, I saw my dad, who had never gone to church with me until a couple years before. He finally loved Jesus. During my nearly week stay in the ICU, I was not coherent very often, but my parents would come in and I would tell them that an angel came to see me. And they knew I was on a lot of medication and that I wasn't thinking straight. And finally one day the angel left his business card. So I went into a regular room, and my dad said, well, let's call the number on the card and see who this is that you think is your angel. And so Dr. Joe Rudd walked through the door, maybe a little bit scared of why he was being called to my room. But he was my angel. God sent him to me. He knew I needed him. And this man has drugged me all over this region. And he was my accidental, on purpose, intentional angel that got me through that week.
Rachael has been one of those patients that has defied logic in medicine. It's one of those patients that you cannot deny an act of God in their healing. I've seen several of them in 26 years of working with trauma patients. Rachael herself, the fact that we became close friends because she thought I was her angel, which no one cannot be your friend when they call you an angel.
My entire life, people have asked me to give my testimony, and before this, it was just normal. I, decided I loved Jesus when I was 7 years old, and I grew up in church, and I didn't have a story to tell. And now I have more than a story to tell of the miraculous things that God has done in my life, but more importantly, in my family's life, my dad, the people who have watched me go through this. If you were to ask me again if I would do this again, I would do it again in a heartbeat.